Welcome into Weather Wednesday here at New England Storm Center. So there is quite a temperature gradient for morning lows this Wednesday morning across New England. A strong area of high pressure and clear skies has kept northern and eastern Maine very cold thanks to prime cooling conditions. Southern New England is being kept warmer thanks to a weak area of low pressure and lots of clouds, preventing too much cooling from happening. At 7 a.m., there was a 43-degree temperature difference between northern Maine and parts of southern New England. It didn't get quite as cold as it could have in northern Maine, but a 43-degree difference is still pretty good. Looking at the unsettled weather for the rest of this week, this afternoon we'll see light scattered precipitation continuing as temperatures continue a very slow climb upward as the warm front continues to very slowly wobble through the region. By Wednesday night, our next system arrives. Temperatures will continue to warm through the night, so Wednesday highs will likely occur at 11:59 p.m. This storm will likely feature plain rain in southern New England and along the northern New England coast. There will likely be mixing across the rest of New England with freezing rain possible. Many models do show plain rain for most of New England, but cold air typically takes longer to erode away at the surface than what these models typically pick up on. So, despite the models showing plain rain for most of New England, I think there will still be plenty of mixing and freezing rain overnight tonight into Thursday morning. By Thursday morning, the air at the surface will likely have warmed enough for plain rain across all but the highest elevations and northern Maine. The snowfall is just about done for today. There could be minor accumulations continuing, mainly across northern New England. This afternoon through tomorrow morning, we'll likely see some icing as the warm air continues to erode the cold air aloft, but cold air remains at the surface. This is a perfect setup for freezing rain. Fortunately, this is a light precipitation event, so ice accretions will be minimal. Up to a tenth of an inch of ice is most likely, with some persistent freezing rain in areas maybe pushing up to 2/10 of an inch. A glaze will be possible elsewhere. This is enough to cause very slippery surfaces, but not enough to have an impact on trees or utilities. Another storm system, the final one in this particular setup, will come through Thursday night through Friday. This will be a plain rain system for most of New England. Northern and eastern Maine will be the exception. They will see more mixing and snow, leading to a potential for several inches of snow across northern Maine by Friday evening. Elsewhere, a widespread half an inch to an inch of rain will be possible, with Rhode Island seeing maybe up to an inch and a half. A flood watch has been posted for Rhode Island, mainly for the typical problem river, the Pawtuxet, which could rise to moderate flood stage. The active January pattern is not leaving after these storms associated with the frontal boundary. On Sunday into Monday, a coastal storm will approach New England. The million-dollar question, as it always is at that point, is where exactly will it track? Models continue to waffle on a closer pass versus a track further to the south, keeping a majority of the precipitation away. Should the storm take a favorable track, several inches of snow will be possible. With this more favorable track, a jackpot zone would be most likely set up across northern Massachusetts, southern New Hampshire, and southern Vermont. If everything for the storm works out, there could be a chance for over 6 inches of snow in these areas. Of course, this is very far from being locked in. There won't be much cold air ahead of this system, despite the fact that New England will be on the cold side of the storm with it passing to the south. Despite this fact, a cold area of high pressure to the north will likely be funneling colder air into New England, possibly as the storm is ongoing, which could further help a more wintry system rather than a rainy system. With this setup, it could start as a mix or rain for areas before transitioning to all snow. Depending on the exact timing, it could even be a snowy start with a messy mix in the middle, followed by a snowy end. It's really too early to go into too much detail, but a mostly as a mostly mist to the south remains possible as well. These are just a couple of the most likely scenarios at the moment, those scenarios being a messy mix, a snowy end, and a mostly miss. We'll be watching the trends for the rest of this week. Another quick note on the weekend storm track. This is more just an observation, but I thought it would be a good thing to bring up on Weather Wednesday. When this storm first came into the picture a couple of days ago, major models such as the Euro, the GFS, the CMC, the Icon had the storm passing well to the south. The new machine-based / AI, whatever you want to call it, model GraphCast showed the storm further north at this time. The other traditional models have since followed suit by bringing the storm a bit further north over the past 24 hours. The traditional models trended the storm further north over the past 24 hours, more in line with GraphCast. This new model does claim to be the most accurate medium-range forecasting model. It was said when this new model was announced in November publicly, it was said to have predicted Hurricane Lee's landfall back in September to occur in Nova Scotia days before the more traditional models picked up on that. If you remember back to Hurricane Lee, models had started bending the storm to potentially make a landfall across down East Maine before backing off on that extreme of a curve, and they had it going back to Nova Scotia. The GraphCast model apparently didn't originally take up on that more extreme curve into down East Maine and continued it into Nova Scotia. So depending on how the track of this storm shakes out, the GraphCast model may have gotten this one right before the other models did again as well. Again, this isn't a statement about this model or anything like that. It's just a quick observation I made. I thought Weather Wednesday would be a good place to bring up this observation. As we've been using over the past couple of months, we've been kind of putting GraphCast in some of our forecast articles. So we have been we've been kind of using an introduction into this model by looking at it to potentially look at the tracks of storms when they are a week out. So that is going to do it for this edition of the Weather Wednesday here at New England Storm Center. So as always, thank you for listening, thank you for watching, and you will hear from me again next Wednesday.